presumably, yes. Okay, it looks like we are live. So, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another stream here. Today, I am with someone who I'm really, really happy about, and I know that I say that a lot, but I'm genuinely super happy about having Ophelia here. And
Hello.
yeah, I will let you do, just in case there's somebody, underneath a rock in the dark crevices of the internet who doesn't know, who don't know, who does not
Doesn't.
know who you
Yeah.
are. You can do a brief introduction or something of that nature if you would like.
I really don't. I think it's a rather large space. I don't think there's that. I think I'm still not a very large creator at all. But I like you, Jonathan. I make lots of not lots. Actually, that's a lie. You make lots of videos. I don't make lots of. I make some videos very infrequently about language learning online, and I feel like I'm very much in the very early stages of language learning with all languages pretty much. And generally I've only been I came across the language learning community in late 2016, I
Oh,
think.
wow.
So
Okay.
also feel like relatively new, but I don't actually know if that's that new anymore. So,
Okay. Yeah.
so
Wow. That's crazy. So I'm trying to think if I'm correct in that, if you got into it in 2016, I think by technicality, my language channel I think is older than yours then, which is
oh yeah.
insane to think about because I think I've started uploading in 2015.
Oh, okay. I started actually making videos about language learning in I think like February of 2017. Yeah.
Huh.
So yeah.
That's
So no. So yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
Fun
So
fact for you.
yeah. Yeah, so thank you for jumping on. I'm gonna jump into first and foremost. I did this in the beginning. Also, I don't make a lot of content. I stream, so it takes out all the. I don't have to edit or anything like that, right? So I
Yeah,
don't.
but I really like your videos though, and I also I feel like you're a much more concise speaker than I am, as I've also just demonstrated just now.
No way.
And so I feel like you get to the point really succinctly and really clearly. And
Oh
yeah, I
well,
don't know. I'm a big
that's
fan, so I'm excited
that's
to see
the
it.
that's the best compliment anybody has ever paid me is that I'm succinct because I feel like I talk. I feel like I over. I had a comment on a video one time that was like, it was on when I did the. I think it was why I switched to an immersion-based learning system, and somebody was like, basically like it's really hard to follow your train of thought, but
Oh,
I also feel like that's part of just who I am. Like I don't doctor anything, I don't script anything. I'm me, and that's what you get. If you like it, that's cool. Stick around. If not, I'm not gonna like. That's just how my brain works. So.
oh, I find it quite easy to follow your
But
train.
but yeah, so I used to do this a long time ago, and then I forgot. And by a long time ago, I mean just like when I first started this a couple months ago, doing these interviews. But I always try to pinpoint the moment when I found out about somebody, and I know exactly, not necessarily the time, but I know exactly what I was searching when I found you, and that was I was searching for Babbel reviews.
Oh, I don't. Oh, that was such a bad video, I think.
And
Oh no.
and I think you'd what's funny is I wasn't even learning like I wasn't learning French. I was just trying to in general see how just how the program was, and I was like, well, if I'm going to use it for Spanish or whatever, it doesn't really matter if she's reviewing French. It should at
Yeah.
least give me an overview of the. And so that's actually the exact like your Babbel videos are what brought me to your channel. And actually, I want to talk about Babbel because Babbel
Yeah.
is something that I have always wanted to like, and I just like struggle
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I used to be a major Babbel fangirl, and that was
Oh crap!
primarily because. Oh,
Ke-
is
ke-
everything okay?
yeah, I realized when I reused the when because like the way that live streaming is, you reuse the last one, and it still has the guy's name from the last time. Let me Ophelia Vert. There we go.
Okay, what fun. Um,
Sorry, yeah.
yes.
So
Oh,
Babbel, yeah.
I was a big fan of Babbel because I like the reason that I got interested in language learning community was because I was trying to learn Russian,
Hmm.
and I was finding it really difficult to find resources and also just kind of know how. I'd not really ever started a language from scratch properly before,
Hmm.
and there are, at least at that time, surprisingly few few resources for learning Russian, I found, that weren't just kind of being in the airport or being a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
And so Babbel was one of the very few courses that I found that was like a normal like a normal textbook that was clear. And I found the Cyrillic alphabet really, really hard. So they kind of broke it down really easily. So I was a big fangirl from that perspective. And then since then, I've tried to use it for Dutch, and I'm not really in love with Babbel anymore. I also, I was a very vocal fangirl of them. And then they let me do some things for their Instagram. So then they gave me access to all of the languages for 2 years. And I don't know if I will renew my Babbel subscription, because I don't know. So I've fallen out of love with it.
Yeah, no, I see a ton of people, and and I think the big thing is if something interests you and you like it, use it. So I mean, it's not for me to say, but I would use this program and it's really clean and clunky at the same time. And I don't understand how that is. Like, it's very clean and it works great and doesn't work at the same time. Like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, definitely. It's really slow, but I think just for Russian, it was great. I didn't really mind that much. For Russian, it was great because, as you said, it's really clean. It was really, whereas lots of Russian textbooks were just kind of printed and they were quite blurry, or I don't know. And so I was immediately attracted to it. But then at the same time, after using it for a while, it was like, this takes forever to just go from one exercise to the next.
Yeah.
So I feel that. So I have kind of fallen out of love with that program. Which I feel a bit guilty about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've used to use every app under the sun until recently, and I deleted them all. Yes. So I mean,
I thought that was so interesting. Remind me what what the impetus for that.
Yeah, so I am a serial dabbler, to a dangerous degree, and ultimately I had kind of gotten a couple of comments, and I'm not letting people kind of choose what I do, but there are a couple of comments that kind of sting because there's some truth to them. And somebody was basically talking about how I would always get to a certain point and be making progress, and then boom, I immediately switch up, and I never stuck with anything. And part of that is because I use applications, and I don't necessarily think that they're bad, but I think for somebody like me, it's bad, because when I log on to Duolingo, for example, and I'm like, all right, cool, let me review my Spanish, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot they just released the Hawaiian course, or I just forgot and I never stick with anything. And so removing the temptation from all these languages, because I think a program that has so many different languages is great, but I also think it's really dangerous.
Yes.
And so I deleted everything, especially Memrise, because Memrise, you don't even have to click on a different thing. All the courses you're studying are there, and you can choose them at any time. So I just had to get rid of kind of that stuff so I could stick. And here, next week will be 2 months into studying Japanese with just kind of the immersion-based thing and no applications. And it's taking longer, but I also feel like I'm actually absorbing the information and not learning how to translate the information.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think the gamification of things has been helpful for me when I've lost motivation for things. And so it's like my sort of gateway getting back into language learning again, where it's I don't really want to learn any more verb tables. Right. I'll just learn some house vocabulary and have an owl go, cool, 5 in a row, give that to me. So, right. So I think, I think you have to be careful how you use them. But then I don't know. I feel like there are these kinds of. I was thinking about it today. It feels like there's, because primarily I study history, and so we often think about these kind of historiographical trends, and I think about that with these sort of trends in the language learning community, and how kind of things kind of come in and out of fashion, and then you have kind of these counter these revisionist language learners going actually Duolingo is great and you can learn everything from it, and then again actually Duolingo is terrible and no one should spend any time on it. And I don't know, I guess you always need something to kind of be going against to make content for, but yeah, I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about those trends recently.
And that's, I think, and there's always going to be something at the height of it, right? When I started learning languages in 2009, that's how long I've been learning and speak nothing, by the way, so that's pretty impressive. So Rosetta Stone was obviously the huge thing.
I think you're way, yeah, I think you're way harder on yourself
Oh, for sure.
than you should be. I also know it's more comfortable to be like, I don't know anything.
I
But
would,
you know, I
yeah,
also,
I would rather say that I don't know anything, so people don't expect it, than to be like, I
yeah.
speak this, and then they're like, you're not that good. So
Yeah, as long as you don't like, I think that's fine. As long as you don't then internalize it and go like, I'm a failure and what have I done for this
yeah,
time?
no, like I did a thing yesterday where, and it failed miserably, but Dakota from Language Learning Lounge was like,
Oh
did the
yeah,
challenge, and so
yeah, yeah.
I was like, well, I can't fully shut off English because I have a wife and a kid and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So I was like, but I will, and I'm not good enough in Japanese yet. Like I can say some stuff like going to work and stuff like that. But here's the funny thing: everything that I said in Spanish yesterday, which is about all I can say in Spanish yesterday, I can say in Japanese. So I absolutely could have,
Mm.
and that's where I'm at in terms of measuring myself,
Mm.
because I could have said it in Japanese, and I don't think that and Japanese is technically supposed to be a weaker language for me.
Mm.
So it makes me think that my Japanese is stronger, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, my Spanish definitely needs a whole
Mm.
lot of work.
Yeah, but then it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's so many different kinds of like purposes of being
Hmm.
able to speak languages. And I think sometimes when a language goes into a more passive use, so at the moment, like my French is something that I primarily read French, and that's mostly how I interact with it. And so now I feel like I feel like my conversational French is really, really lacking, and I
Uh,
don't really, and so I think it's also like, so if I was thinking about Dakota's challenge, I was like, I think it would be possible to do that, but it would not come naturally at all. So I
yeah,
feel like my everyday French is, but that's interesting.
yeah.
So,
I
does your
think
wife speak Spanish?
no, she's very very supportive in like what I
Mm,
do language wise, and ever so often like I will try to be like, you should learn something. She's like, maybe, but it's just not really. The only thing she did do is when I learned Esperanto, she did about half of the Esperanto tree, and so
mm.
I would try to speak to her in Esperanto, and then
Oh,
she was like, I did the tree, and I can see the stuff when I'm doing it, but I have no idea. And I'm like, all right, fair
oh,
enough. So she's at least
oh, that's
been,
so nice.
yeah, she's been supportive. And I mean, you got to think like I stream usually 4 or 5 nights a week, like,
Mm.
and she's been super fine with it.
Oh,
She's very very supportive. So, um,
oh,
so yeah,
that's good to hear.
I know having a partner that speaks the language is
Mm.
super helpful, but I think just having any kind of support system goes a long way. So,
Yes, my boyfriend who I'm in quarantine with, he is a kind of I feel slightly demoralized because he speaks many languages,
oh,
and so I've and so and he but he's very supportive of all this, and kind of teases me and says, "Oh well, you are the princess of the polyglot
yeah,
world." Which, when he is the real polyglot, it makes me feel a bit shy. But he's very supportive. I just you
yeah,
know teasing needs to be, it's important, teasing is important, but
oh
yeah,
for sure.
so no, that's really nice that she did the tree though.
Yeah, yeah, she tried to, and I thought, well, see, and then that's where I thought I had her because I was like, if she'll study Esperanto, which is like,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
surely she'll study, quote unquote, a real language,
Hmm.
but she just doesn't really. I don't know. It's just not her thing. So,
Yeah, that's okay.
I also think because she's a teacher, so I
Hmm.
think part of it is the idea of going to school and teaching kids all day and then coming home. Which I know, I had Ash Kinuku Ninja on here, and he's a teacher and also
Hmm.
he learned Japanese. But there's also that passion there. I think it would be hard to casually do it if your job is teaching all day and then come home and
Hmm.
be taught something.
Yeah, for sure. And also, just that's tiring. Being a teacher is hard.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's
probably you just want to have a nice calming time,
yeah.
recharge your brain. Even though for some people, I know that is language learning, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, let's see. Luke, there's a couple people in here. Welcome. Let's see. Luke says, I think that just means your Spanish is rusty and not bad. I can barely speak Cantonese right now, but that's actually true. I actually do think if I spend about a week or so, like even just reading some stuff, I honestly think a lot of it would come back. Like I think it's there. I just think that it's not been used in so long that it's not at the front of my brain. So I,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I think when you get to a certain level in a language, it's like, it's not that you don't lose it at all, but it's just that it can come back much faster than
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
very good point, Luke. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I and one thing with my Spanish too, like in the video where I talk about going to an immersion based approach, I talk about I tried to go to a couple of restaurants and speak Chinese because I don't know Chinese, but I can say literally like a handful of phrases in Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And Spanish, I thought I could go to a Mexican restaurant and speak, but like I had such this almost like nervous breakdown. Like I just have such anxiety. But I think once everything opens back up, I am going to try because I think if I could I think the first initial hello, I think just doing that and then I would be fine. I think if I got that first, hola hablo español, they'd be like, oh, and then I think I would just be fine. But just getting that first initial thing. So
yeah, I think it's so. Sorry if you're about to say something.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of people in the language learning community are very introverted people, and I am very much an extrovert. So I sometimes people ask me about like, well, how do you? Because I've never had. Sometimes I've had times where I've frozen, but generally being anxious about speaking to people, I've been, I feel very lucky. That's not something that generally I find difficult, and so sometimes people say, well, like, how do you get the confidence? I'm really not qualified to answer that at all. So I think being an extroverted person in the language learning community, I feel very lucky.
yeah, because I'm definitely like I had somebody after one of my interviews talk about that, and I was like, no, I'm not an extrovert at all, man. I will stay. This quarantine has been awesome. I'll stay in my house as long as I humanly possibly can. Like I don't like even in high school though, I was never like time to go out and go to a party and like go like I stayed at home. I played video games and I was perfectly content. So
I mean, I also like those things, but I also really generally, I find that people in conversations are, especially if there's a conversation with a large group of people where no one knows each other, that's like my ideal situation because everyone's nervous. And so like the best thing that you can do is you can slightly embarrass yourself and then everyone else is at ease and then everyone else can, and like it's okay. So I don't know. I love meeting new people, ideally a lot of new people at the same time.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I don't know. Like I think I worked retail for a long time, so I got better at it. And like I still have people to this day that know me from where I worked at GameStop for a long time, and like I still see. I've been away from GameStop longer than I was there, and I still have people who be like, "Hey, are you still there?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I've not been there in 8 years." So,
that's nice.
But and so I'm fine with talking to people like that. But I think it's just because there's like that similar interest.
Yeah.
And I think that can make it, and that's why I think these podcasts are easy, is because it's the similar interest. I'm interviewing people who love languages, so there's that common ground.
But I also think you're because even though I am an extroverted person, sometimes I've filmed podcasts with people or filmed things with people and it's gone really badly because we just I don't know, just quite different people.
Gotcha.
Or just I don't know. And so whereas I think you're very calming, you're very good at putting people at ease, and I also think from watching the other one, so I also think that's why it's gone easily. There's the common interest, but also I think you're quite good, very good at making everyone calm. So
right. Well, hopefully so. Hopefully I can be a calming presence. So does your boyfriend, do you guys share a well, I'm assuming English, but do you share another language that you speak together?
So I mean, we both live in the Netherlands. So and so he's dabbled a bit in Dutch. I think there was a while where he was doing Duolingo every day when he was taking the train. He also because he's Italian, he speaks French well. So, and then both of us have dabbled a little bit in Spanish before. So, so sometimes it's just fun to kind of, say some things and have a bit of fun with it. I don't know. It's nice because it feels, I don't know, it feels very relaxed. It feels like just fun to be able to dabble a bit. And so every now and then he'll go, maybe I should learn Serbo-Croatian, or maybe I should learn, Greek again. And so it's also nice to be with someone who finds languages exciting. So yeah.
Yeah. What, I feel like, so you said he was Italian. So I presume he just grew up learning languages because it's so common in Europe as to where Americans are like, we're monolingual, we're not learning your crap.
Oh, I think it's that, but also the region of Italy that he grew up in, where they also speak German. So, and then
Ah,
he lived in Austria. So, I think it's the kind of. I hope he's okay, but I don't know. But yeah, so I think it's also the kind of he grew up in a monolingual, multilingual environment. So I think
gotcha.
that's about it. Whereas I grew up completely monolingually, and so I feel like I'm scrambling to try and being here and everyone. There's only like one other English person on the master's course that I'm doing, and it's like most people are doing it in their second or third, maybe even
Mm.
fourth language, and it's like, oh my god, this is my first language, and oh my, so I feel, I don't know, I've been being around all these people who, I don't know, I've felt a lot of embarrassment about like being around these highly multilingual people, and me being the person who makes things about language learning has felt like, oh no, I'm a fraud.
No, no. I mean, I think you're right. I think that's part of it, though, is just growing up because
Yeah.
I assume the UK is probably at least somewhat similar um, to America in that regard, where we're like, it's we have English. So,
Yeah, for sure.
what's when did you get start? Like, what was the thing that made you say, you know what, I think I'm going to learn a language? Like, when did you get into it, and what got you into it?
I don't know. I've always been really excited about language learning. My mum lived in Switzerland for 2 years,
Hmm.
and she lived in Montreux, so she speaks French very well. And so I used to find it so exciting when we went on holiday to France, and my mum, being able to talk in this language that I didn't know and I couldn't understand her. I thought it was so exciting, and so it was kind of an early fascination at people being able to. I don't know, understand other foreign languages, and then and then I wanted to impress a boy when I was in primary school and he was Polish, so I was like, well, I'll just learn Polish. Well, my dad bought me a Polish dictionary, and I just sat there and was like, I'll just learn these words. And I mean, it was very sweet. And
Yeah.
my cousin got me into K-pop, and I was doing, which was in like 2011. I guess she really got me into K-pop, and it seemed like the coolest thing ever. So I don't know. It's been something that, if there wasn't like a one distinctive moment, it's been something that I've always really enjoyed. But then, and then I came across the online community in 2016, and it was so exciting. And I went through that whole euphoria that I think people do when they find the online language learning community of like, there's other people like me. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Keith Hayden says, so I'm so envious of the language exposure many Europeans get when they are growing up. Yeah, 100%. I agree.
I mean, I'm technically European, but yes, it's true.
I can understand how Ophelia feels. My girlfriend is trilingual English, Cantonese, and Mandarin, and I feel like even after putting in years of effort, I wouldn't get close to her language ability.
Yeah, it's kind of demoralizing, but also, I mean, it's inspiring and it's cool, but it also feels a bit like, oh no,
Yeah. My opinion that language learning is one of the most rare hobbies out there. Really glad I came across it. It's really beautiful and rewarding. Any special reason you both start language learning? Do you think?
Well, what about you? What about you, Jonathan? I've just answered that question. So, what got you into language learning?
So growing up, again, like it's no secret, I am a massive pro wrestling fan. I love pro wrestling. Like, I'll fight people over pro wrestling, man, because people are like, it's fake, and I'm like, look, I don't care. Do you think that the movie that you're watching about the turtles who are mutants and human, do you think that that's real? Everybody knows that's a scripted thing, right? Like, so like, I love pro wrestling, and I grew up watching. Well, I grew up obviously watching the big ones in America, but I used to read wrestling magazines all the time, and I would see stuff about Japanese wrestling, and they had, and still to this day, they do have probably the second biggest wrestling conglomerates out there. Like, Mexico has a pretty huge wrestling scene too, and there's wrestling everywhere, but Japan was huge, right? And so, I grew up seeing some of the names of these guys, I don't know if anybody watches or not, but the Kenta Kobashis and the Misawas and stuff like that. And so that made me interested in Japanese, because everybody's like, oh, you must love manga, and I'm like, no, not at all. I love pro wrestling, which I've gotten into like manga and anime recently. But so I literally in 2009 I was again, watching some Japanese wrestling, and then I had a friend bring a movie over called Tokyo Zombie, which was amazing. I don't remember much about it, but I remember loving it, and it was just like a small little zombie outbreak in Tokyo, and I was like, you know what, dude? I'm learning Japanese. Of course,
That's so
almost
cool.
almost like kind of the idea of with you with Polish, where you're just like, I'm just going to jump in. That's what I did, having no idea the absolute mind screw Japanese is, and that's why I jumped into it. And then from there, once I even understood just a tiny little bit, like it kind of helped me with the idea of understanding that there's a lot of things culturally that can't be translated. Such even just for example, you know, in Japanese, before you eat, itadakimasu. A lot of people say or translate it as, you know, thank you for this meal, but it's not really translatable. It's a cultural thing that they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so once that started, that's when I was like, well, now I want to dabble. Like I want to learn a little bit of other languages like Spanish or Russian or, you know, any of the things that I've studied because of like the cultural ties to that stuff. I feel like there's so much culture in language that's non-translated. So that's short story, too long, didn't read. Japanese wrestling got me into language learning.
That's
so
very cool. I think the other thing for me was also history, and because if you study most history, but especially medieval history, you have to be able. The presumption is that you'll be able to read papers not just in English but also French, German, and ideally Italian, and then you'll also have a good command of Latin. And so it's also that like what I want to do is like language learning is like very essential to being able to do that. But I mean, that's not as cool as saying I got into Japanese pro wrestling. Like that's way cooler that I want to study medieval people.
No, it's your own interests, right? Like it's what it's what you want to do. And I think you saying Latin reminded me. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but it seems like there's a massive surge in people wanting to learn Latin lately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of people who are like, I think I want to learn a little bit of Latin, like, and I don't know, maybe, you know, it's just to kind of better understand a lot of different languages, just because I know that so many languages root in Latin, but...
I mean, can I ask a horrible question? Was this before or after Duolingo released their Latin course? Because they released a Latin course
after,
recently.
I think. Yeah, I think it was after.
So I don't know whether it's maybe people hadn't considered that it was a language that you could dabble in, and then now it's on a very dabbleable website partly. Right. But I do think there is, you know, there's a huge overlap obviously between people being interested in historical linguistics as well as, or linguistics generally, as well as languages. So I don't know, but yeah, I wonder how much the surge was caused by the release of the Duolingo course.
It's very true. I wonder if. Because I know a lot of courses on Duolingo don't have like the Vietnamese course has like barely any audio. The Navajo course has no audio that I came across. So I'm wondering. I assume because from what I understand, people still have no idea what Latin actually sounded like, right? Like it's like they have an idea, but not really.
Oh, it's a really controversial question. Actually, it's a really interesting question, but it's really one that I'm not really qualified to talk about. But because it's the scope of the Roman Empire is so massive, I think it varied so greatly. And you kind of see that variation as in the kind of medieval manuscripts where, you know, French manuscripts start replacing certain letters with a T instead of what had been a C before, for example, or, you know, Spanish ones start doing, you know, so you kind of see these changes happening, which gives you an insight into what the accent might have been. But yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. I don't know. The people have very strong opinions about it, and I get very nervous. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah. That was a long answer. Sorry, but
no.
Or a long non-answer.
No, it's all good. That makes sense. Like
yeah,
I've heard a lot of people just talk about Latin, and that's what I always wondered is if they had an audio to it. So when you're studying, right? Like you obviously you used Babbel a while back for a little bit, but what is your kind of general routine now? Like if you were to start a language today, let's say you were like, all right, I'm starting something that you've never dabbled in, right? Whatever it may be. What would be your plan of action?
I have started something recently, but not too much. But with that, I mean, I dabbled a bit before, and it's similar to something else I know. So, but I kind of I like to start grammar first, which I know is not, it's like the opposite of the mass immersion approach. But I mean, I like to have as much audio as possible, but at the same time, So, but like audio, passive audio while I'm doing other things, just to kind of try and absorb things if possible, or just like the rhythm of the language. But then I really like to start grammar first. So looking at kind of, if obviously if there are cases, work out how the inflections work, or if there's like how many tenses there are, how they relate to each other, how you conjugate things. So I tend to take a kind of grammar first approach. But then I also for me personally, I really like to have as good of an accent as I can have, to try and beat the stereotype of the classic English person who says "oué the poulet," you know. So it's kind of a combination of those two, like accent and grammar work.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do you do a lot of shadowing or anything?
What does shadowing mean?
Like where you'll have somebody repeat the sentence and then you'll like you try to repeat it word for word, like to try and mimic as close to possible, like that accent.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time. I also do that outside of language learning, just because I love different people's accents generally, and so that tends to be kind of, that's the way that I've been going about this. I actually started because Lindy made a video about Hello Talk, and I'd never used it before, so I've been trying that out recently, and been really impressed by it, actually, that people have been quite good as language exchange people. But I don't know, have you ever used it?
I have. I think females have an easier time because
I'm sure
because dudes are pretty creepy sometimes. I think I've once ever had, and I've messaged a ton of people. I've never had anybody answer me. Ever.
No, I'm so sorry.
Nah, it's all good.
What language was it for?
I've tried. I've tried Japanese, Chinese, Spanish. Oh
my gosh.
Afrikaans, which that I'm a little more okay with that because it's so rarely spoken, like because I wanted to dabble in that, but I mean it's been so many different things, and I just never have anybody answer. But at the same time, in terms of like Spanish or something, again, if I really want, and I know I like the mirror up where it's behind a screen, but like, I mean, if I really want to speak Spanish, I can walk down the road and speak Spanish, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And in terms of other languages, I'm not really to a level like Japanese. I could literally just be like, iitenki desu ne, nice weather, right? Like, like not really much I can, and that probably is wrong in itself. But like it's that's about the extent I could do. So I don't know. I'll eventually try it again.
I've been enjoying rather than chatting to people so much, also because sometimes people are really demanding. You go, please, Lisa, stop talking to me. But I've been enjoying where you post I think it's called a moment, and so I've been working through the Fingtam languages 30-day speaking challenge. So where you post like a minute a day, and then people correct you. Yeah. So and then I've been enjoying also then correcting other people, and then I have a couple of people where we always seem to correct each other's things. So that's been quite nice. But I'm in terms of having a conversation, I'm kind of less interested. I'm more interested in the kind of correction community. So
nice. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I grew up bilingual, Bengali, Hindi. Really surprising how much you can learn if you just have exposure from when you're a child. I learned Hindi entirely consuming Hindi shows when I was 3 to 5 with no other input. Yeah, I mean, man, if you could go back to the time when you were a child, when your brain is just soaking stuff in, man, that would be so good. Rasmus, hello. Oh yeah, these exchange apps are used more often like dating apps, guys hitting on women. That is true. Or not necessarily true, but it's definitely, dudes are weird, that's for sure. I'm a female, but I rarely get replies on Hello Talk or Tandem. Well, I don't know. What language? Out of curiosity, what languages are you trying to get help in? I don't even bother trying. Yeah, I like the idea. I do like the idea of language exchange, especially if done properly, right? Like, hey, let's speak for an hour. We'll do 30 minutes English and 30 minutes French, or whatever you're learning. I think that's extremely helpful, because I think, and that's what I always say. People are like, how should I use tutors? And I honestly think that the best use for a tutor is getting them to speak to you. Just like, they can teach you a concept, but then just being able to have that one-on-one exchange with that native language just being poured into your head the way a person would naturally speak. I mean, that's so beneficial.
Yeah. Absolutely. I booked my first one for this language on Friday, so that's really exciting. So
Nice.
I'm trying to do as much as I can to prepare for that, to kind of make the most. I've also only booked half an hour because I was like, I don't, and
Mhm.
anything longer is going to be too overwhelming on my level. It's not good enough. So
Yeah.
yeah, exciting.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. When I first started booking tutors, I would do an hour at a time. And
Mm,
usually after about 30 minutes, like until you're a little bit more advanced in the language, like I feel like anything past 30 minutes is almost overkill
yeah,
because
I agree.
I'm just running my head into the ground where the language is so, no pun intended, foreign to me that nothing sticks
Yeah,
because it's not commonplace, you know?
yeah, for sure.
So because like in English, if somebody tells me a word that I've never heard, it's a lot easier for it to stick because I know English
Yeah,
from where
yeah.
it's similar.
Although I have to say, I think I'm quite bad at learning new words in English. So and also I worry that my vocabulary in English is actually not that good.
I,
But
So
I don't know, what can you do?
I had that the exact same conversation with when I interviewed Matt from Matt versus Japan. I told him I said I feel like my English is terrible, and I honestly feel like I feel like in Japanese I will eventually have a better and more like robust vocabulary than I do in English
Yeah,
because I don't read a lot, and I know a lot of vocabulary building comes from reading,
yeah.
but I don't read a lot. I try like I read Harry Potter, but like there's only so much vocabulary you can build if those are the
I
only
mean,
7 books you read.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? So, because I was thinking today about all the, I know it's a bit controversial, and obviously doesn't apply to all languages, and it's flawed. But I was thinking about the CFR scale today, and because I don't know, seeing people talking about like having learnt a language to B2 level from scratch in 6 months and whatever, and you know, people live their lives however they want to live. But I feel like there's a kind of massive underestimation of like how high these different levels are, and when
Hmm.
people kind of presume, for example, that is their native language, so there'll be C2 in it. Like there are definitely topics I'm not C2 on
Oh,
in
for
in
sure.
English. And probably a considerable number. And I don't know. I feel like I don't know. B2 is really hard, and I feel
Hmm.
like it's something that I have to actively maintain in French, and that's my best other language. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something I was thinking about today.
No, I agree. I think I agree with you. I saw your tweet actually right before I'd sent you that link, and I
Mm,
agree. Um, B2 is pretty advanced. I mean, because
yeah.
when you're talking C1, you're talking like once you hit the C1 level, that's when people start saying like native like and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
B2 means you understand a crap ton of stuff, and there's just a couple of holes here or there that need filled in. That is
Yeah.
impressive in any language.
Yeah, and so I feel like they're saying, I don't know, this stuff, it feels like it's like shameful to say in the language learning community that my highest for like language that I've learned is B2, because it's everything's about getting to that C1
Yeah,
without. I don't know, these things are all made up anyway, so I know it kind of doesn't mean anything. But
right.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, I've been having
No,
some
it's
thoughts lately, but they're not really coherent yet.
Yeah, let's see. Luke
Yeah.
Truman says, "I wonder if a lot of people you message are dead accounts." I just looked into
Yeah.
my health. Ah, that's a good point. It may have, Luke. That may be. I just joined. Sorry if you mentioned this before, but where are you at with Dutch, Ophelia?
Um, So that's a good question. I live with two. My job is in Dutch, in a restaurant, and I live with two Dutch people. And but I haven't really. It's been, it's been my Dutch has been kind of dormant for however long the quarantine's been going on, basically almost 3 months it feels. So it got a lot worse, and then I went to work on whichever day it was, and then I came home and my roommates were like, "Oh, your Dutch has gotten so much better today." So I don't know. It's not good, but it does the job I need it to do for my work. But
Mm.
like, it's not great.
Do you
It's
think?
not where I'd like it to be.
Do you think that because I'm not necessarily saying you're in an intermediate plateau. Do you think you just happen to be at that point in a language where, like when you
Oh
first?
no, I'm not intermediate.
Okay, well, I was gonna say because you eventually get to a point to where
Yeah.
that first month you study, look at all that progress. Even month 1 to 2, you're like, I'm making progress. But then once you start getting up there, it might take you 3 months to progress as much as you made in month 1, just because there's so much more information you're trying to consume.
Yeah, I think the problem is that I really want to fall in love with Dutch as a language, and like I find it really friendly and I need it, but I don't get the same pleasure out of studying Dutch as I do other languages. And so I don't know. I think I'm very fond of it, but I don't like. It doesn't. When I'm like, time to do some language learning, I'm far more likely to try and tackle bits of French grammar that are my least favorite things than go like, I need to revise how to form the future tense in Dutch or how to form the past tense. So yeah, it's less to do with the intermediate plateau and more to do with my own motivation, which is not I'm not proud of that, but yeah.
I mean, it can be hard. That's for sure. Being in the U.S., it should be very easy to find people to practice your Spanish. Oh yeah, no, for sure. That is true. That's why I say it all the time. I could literally walk out of my house and I guarantee you within 10 minutes I would find someone that spoke Spanish. So I definitely could do that. I'd love to get to a B2 in Spanish. I'm probably an early A2 right now. Well, let me tell you this. I am by certification a B1 Spanish speaker. And I cannot speak at all. So, like, I like in terms of, like, thinking about passing that test. But I think that actually, this is a good thing to chat about in terms of test taking versus speaking ability, because I think a lot of times when you take those CEFR tests, it is you're learning how to take a test.
Sure, yeah.
And there's plenty of examples of people that pass those tests but still can't speak the language.
Yeah, like I don't know how many hours I've sunk into, like, my least favorite part of French grammar is relative pronouns. And I've sunk so many hours into trying to get, and I won't get them right, but it's those kinds of things that when you're taking a language test that can make your score like really low, because language tests are actually really, they mark every single part, every single agreement, everything. Whereas when you're speaking and living the language, like, you have more room, obviously, this is very obvious to say, but you have more room to kind of make those mistakes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really difficult to assess how useful I think they are, but
I guess it's a good measuring stick, but it's still at the same time like honestly, it might even be better off if you would just go down, because they'll tell you like the checklist of what they're looking for in terms of the topics. Check those off. If you meet it, you're A1. Boom. Yeah. I was thinking actually about trying to kind of do that with Dutch, actually, and kind of look at the specifications for each of the things and go, okay, have I covered these things, as a kind of way of trying to invigorate myself a bit more. But yeah. How do you find pronunciation in Dutch? Because I know people talk about Dutch pronunciation. I find personally any language I've studied or dabbled in, I will fight people in this. French is the hardest pronunciation I've ever tried to study. And it's because the word will be 30 letters long and you pronounce 3 of the letters, and I can't, like, French, I struggle.
The vowels are really specific, and because, like, I don't know, and French people are ruthless. There's also, they're the least least welcoming people to foreign people. And so if you don't speak the language with no accent, they will, like, look at you with these eyes. Like, even close friends of mine that are French will do it. Like, you're looking at me with the eyes. So, but then I also understand that, like, French words are really similar, and it's just very small vowel changes. And I think, I don't know. Yeah, French is really hard. How do I find Dutch? I don't know. I find it okay. It's hard to make these sorts of judgments because it's just the way that I've learned Dutch is much more from talking to people. It's a bit more, maybe it's a bit more in the, I don't know, in the MIA world. Not that I've had that much input, but just in that I've learned it from being at work, from hearing conversations, from repeating those sorts of things. So I don't know. Yeah, so I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
How do you find the Japanese pronunciation?
I find it easy. Japanese they only have, I think, 128 different pronunciations. Like, there's only 128 sounds in their language. In comparison, I think English has like 370. Like, something crazy like that. Because, like, the thing is, if you see ka, like the sign for ka, like, it's pronounced ka. Like, it's, now, I mean, you have, like, combined symbols. Like, it could be like kyo, or, which that actually would be ki. But anyway, like, the thing that I find the hardest so far is when I'm trying to read longer words in hiragana, And because then I'll be like, you know, like even for example, you know, you would be like, what is kanbanwa? Okay, like that kind of thing. So that makes it a little bit hard, but like pronunciation for the most part, like there's some stuff that I'll struggle with when, especially when you combine those. You know, like I said, like you'll have like shu, which is she, and then a small yo. Like it's that can get a little, you know, a little muddy sometimes, and then sometimes there's an additional oo sound or an additional vowel. But other than that, I find it to be not too bad at all. Which is why I love Japanese, because you know, there is like a pitch to the language, but like it's not like Chinese where a tone changes the meaning of a word or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Interesting. Because I know so little about Japanese as a language, and yet I feel like I should do. It's, you know, it's also a language that lots of people like to learn, and Japanese seems to, you know, has a major cultural influence.
Yeah, so I think and the easy part about Japanese is that there's so much media produced from there. Like it's so easy to get your hands on Japanese content, right? Like you know, I've dabbled in languages before where it's almost impossible, just because, you know, there's like, for example, I dabbled in Norwegian, which I know Tongue Tied Blog is learning Norwegian, and he probably spent a little more time finding resources, but there's 5 million speakers of Norwegian. And so the country itself just doesn't produce that. But Japan, I mean...
But if you like a Scandi Noir, though, you know, you'll be rolling in it. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much content, and that's what, and it stems from everything. They produce literature, they produce movies, they produce TV shows, they produce the anime, they produce the manga books, they produce wrestling. There's game shows, there's talk show, literally everything that you could possibly imagine. Japan has, and so I think it's just easier to get my hands on the material. So
yeah, that's also tricky with Dutch, because Dutch, like younger Dutch people, generally. Like they tend to say that they really hate the Dutch language, and that they, you know, hate music in Dutch. They find it cringy. They hate to watch films in Dutch. Like there is a real push for everything to be American or British, and that's, you know, so when I ask them, who are your favorite Dutch YouTubers or TV channels, TV shows, it tends to be from people who are learning Dutch as well, rather than from Dutch people, because I never watch that. So I think. Yeah, I find that a bit tricky with Dutch. Yeah. Definitely.
Luke Truman actually has a good point here. He said, if I'm pronunciation hard in every language, and a lot of people who say it is easy have really bad pronunciation themselves, I find it quite hard in Mandarin. I think that's true. When I say I find the pronunciation easy, I guess I'll rephrase what I mean there. Like, obviously my pronunciation isn't going to be perfect. I mean, when I hear people speaking, it's easy for me to pick up the sounds. Versus like not knowing, oh man, like for example in Russian, is that an O or is it an A? I don't know. Is that a stress symbol or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of how that is. Like I think that's what I mean. That is a good point. So pronunciation for anybody, I guess, could be hard, just because every language has sounds that your language doesn't have.
Yeah.
But also, when people are speaking it.
Sorry, I couldn't.
No, you're good.
Sorry.
You know, and Andy, when someone says Russian is easy to pronounce, I doubt that they have a clue how to pronounce it correctly. Russian's hard, I think.
Russian was so hard. I spent like 4 years trying to learn Russian, and I have nothing to show for it. It was so hard. Oh no, don't be scared away from learning French, Marissa. French is wonderful. It's just, I think if you were fans of their channel at the time, Abigail, still of Polyglot Progress, and Matilda, formerly of Polyglot Progress, I remember them saying, like, German, comparing to French and German, French starts kind of easy and then it gets really hard grammatically and pronunciation-wise, whereas German starts really hard and then gets much easier because it's consistent with rules. But French is lovely. Don't be scared of it.
Yeah, I would eventually like to learn some French, I believe, but I think that's probably... I have to stick with one thing, I do believe, because I struggle. I know that in Russian with the cases, though, I heard I had a class with a Russian teacher one time, and she had said, "What is happening on my Facebook Messenger right now? Sorry, it keeps going off. Let me."
It's just too popular.
It's probably Let me see. No, I have. There's a dude that I know that he's one of my best friends, but he instead of sending like one message, he'll send like one message with everything in it. He'll send like 800 messages.
Oh no, I'm that person as well, which I know is really annoying for everyone else apart from me. It's like it's very. I feel like I'm quite an expressive person, and getting across expression in speech is really hard. So I try and
Yeah.
get it across in the ways that I want to.
Yeah. But I think so. I had a Russian teacher one time explain to me, like, because I was like, so, but if I get the cases wrong, like, I'll still be kind of understood, right? And she said, well, she said, I'll give you an example. And again, this is not going to be correct cases. I'm giving you just a pure example here. She said, if you go into the middle of a square and you say pizza, people know by the case that you used, you're going to have people flock to you because they think you're selling pizza. If you say pizza, they're going to start telling you where you can buy pizza. That's the important of the cases. And I was like, ugh, all right.
Yeah, I wonder how much that's true though. If whether that would be judging it by the standards of a native Russian speaker versus a foreigner, because I feel like they might, in my experience, it's just like something has to click it, like, and then they go, oh, okay, you're going to make these mistakes because this is not your native language. So, yeah, generally I found that Russians were supportive when it came to making those sorts of mistakes, even though they will tell you, but they are supportive of you making mistakes. So that was my experience. But,
yeah, I always had, because I studied Russian for like 2 or 3 months. And I got a harasho and like spasiba. Like that's about what I got out of it.
I mean, at this point now, I feel like that's all I got out of it. It's so sad. I spent so much time on Russian. And yeah, very, I don't know. And also, I agree with Andy there, the pronunciation, like they have two different letters that in English would just be an S and an H. They have the sh and the sh, and it's just all of this madness. God, it's awful.
How many hours do you study a day? And if you are so kind, could you share with us how your daily language learning routine looks like?
No, who asked that?
All right, I'm gonna pronounce Inigo because I see the Inya over that. Inigo Alai perhaps. Inigo Alai. I probably mispronounced your name, sorry, but
I have 0 language learning routine, which is a problem. Do you have one?
Yeah, so recently my son is in this habit where he'll wake up at like 6 a.m. And so I get up with him because like I'll let my wife sleep. Not every day, but like we'll kind of. But so when I get up with him, I'll spend between an hour or so going ahead and reviewing my kanji for the day, and I'll do a little bit of reading on either Link or something like that, where I'll just do some reading. And then I'll go to work. While I'm at work, I try to have Japanese playing in my ear because I can use headphones at work. I'll try to have Japanese in my ear as much as possible, like and it doesn't matter, I don't understand it because I don't speak Japanese, but like just having it that way, if I'm typing at work and I get a second where I'm like, all right, let me rest for a second, boom, it's at like, then I'm paying attention, it's there, just to get any extra. When I go on lunch, I will generally watch a YouTube video or two in Japanese, no subtitles or anything, just try to take it for what it's worth. Now, if I didn't wake up that morning with my son, lunch is when I'll do my kanji study. And then after work, I'll come home, and I don't do anything until about 7:30 or 8 because I will never, ever put languages or anything in front of time with my son, ever. And so, like, I don't have passive audio going on, I have anything. I'm just paying attention to him. And then once he goes to bed, my wife and I will watch a TV show or something. She usually goes to bed around 9:30 or 10. If I'm doing an interview, which I do a lot at 9, if I do those at 9, usually I will try to get a little bit of immersion in before then because she knows that I like to do that. And then after the interview, or if I don't have an interview, just later in the evening, I'll try to make sure I get at least up to an hour of active immersion that day. And that's I feel like that was a very elongated thing, but that's pretty much a daily thing that I do.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, no, I'm terrible. It really depends. I mean, at the moment, I've been way better. I've been doing this audio course for a language.
That reminds me, you should check out. Tyler from Tongue Tied Blog told me about Bluebird, and it is kind of like Pimsleur, but it doesn't cost anything.
Wow. Okay, I will have a look.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And to everyone, I'll say thank you on behalf of all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been like, whenever I'm cycling, which is normally every day for like half an hour or so, I listen to like one or two of those lessons, or if I'm doing the washing up, because the washing up is my least favorite thing in the whole world. So I generally motivate myself to do that by being like, I'll do another lesson. So things like that, and then but I have no routine, which is, I don't know. But because it's also like, I want to make this a fun thing, and I have to have so many other routines for other things. So, I know I could just integrate it, but also sometimes I want to, I don't know. Sometimes I want to read my book, and sometimes I want to play a bit of Samurott. Like, I don't know. So it really depends.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really rubbish at routines, but I'm always looking for advice if anyone has any on whether that should change.
Let me see. Lindy. Hey, what is going on, Lindy? Welcome. Smaller to Cantonese. Some characters pronunciation work, but one is most common. Hey, Lindy, Luke. Lindy says she's been using Bluebird because they have Gulf Arabic. The Afrikaans course isn't bad either. Yeah, I like Bluebird. It's cool because the cool thing about Bluebird is you actually can you can set your own course. So like basically, you can go through all the stuff that they have, but you can also go into it and specifically select your interests, and it will fully design you a course based on those interests, right? Like, so you can choose that you like entertainment, travel, fashion, all this kind of stuff, and it fully builds that course around that. So it's not like a Duolingo or a Lingodeer or anything where you have to hit these specific targets. You literally just learn what you enjoy. It's a pretty cool. I still have to get a little more into it. As of right now, kind of that first initial eye test and just kind of messing around with it a little bit was fantastic.
And Lindy said the Afrikaans course is also good. So, as I can't imagine there's a huge, because I saw Lindy, I saw your tweet the other day where you said like, in comparison to everyone saying, please don't learn my native language, it's so hard, please learn Afrikaans. So, if there's a good free online Afrikaans course, also maybe that will help.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Lindy, I can tell you, I looked into the Afrikaans course, so I can say things like boeien and like it means bean, and like what is
that's like Dutch
for like I think barley is like gaars or something like that. So also
that's fun. Sorry, when I first moved here, because I eat lots of bonen in Dutch, or beans. I love some chickpeas and some kidney beans. Give them to me. So and the person I was living with at the time, he said, "You eat a lot of bones." And I was like, I'm vegetarian. I really don't eat many bones. And so then we finally realized that this was a mistranslation of bonen to bones instead of beans. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Go on.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, and I know that Afrikaans and Dutch are very, very similar in terms of that pronunciation. So, or in terms of some words.
I think Lindy actually has a video, maybe talking. I don't know. Maybe I imagined it, but with Alex Rawlings, where he spoke Dutch and you spoke Afrikaans. But I don't know. To me, it sounds like Dutch, but just kind of chopped in half. Is what it sounds like. But
gotcha.
I know that's a massive oversimplification of Afrikaans as a language, so I apologize.
I like videos like that are cool. I would like to see, and I'm sure there is on YouTube, but I would like to see someone speaking Spanish only to someone who only speaks Portuguese to see how much is intelligible. And I would like to see all three, or I don't know, I've heard people say Icelandic is Scandinavian. I don't know language trees that well, but the Scandinavian languages between,
Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish.
Yeah, I would love to see three of them just to see how much is intelligible.
Well, maybe my favorite TV show ever is called Bron, which is a bilingual Swedish-Danish TV show. So that's amazing. And you sometimes have bilingual couples, and you're like, how does this work? Where you have two different languages, but you can understand each other. To me, they sound really different, but I don't think the words are that different. But yeah, anyway, so I've been rewatching The Bridge recently, and I just, oh my gosh, I love it. And I really want to learn Swedish, but it's just never convenient to learn Swedish. So... Yes.
One thing I will say, and I talked to this when I talked to Lamont from Days of French and Swedish, but they're, even though they're so small, because I think there's 10 million Swedes, they produce a pretty decent amount of content.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Sweden has a ton.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Norwegian. When you're saying they also have quite. I find Norwegians tend to be very proud of Norwegian culture, and I think that there's a lot of at least novels written in Norwegian. But bron means also, it means it's the bridge in Swedish. So it's I think, or maybe, and then it's and I can't remember which one is. I think, yeah, I can't remember which way around is the Danish and Swedish ones. But if you ever want a bilingual Swedish Danish, very moving, very well acted TV show.
Yeah. So when you get back into, or I don't want to say get back because I know that you're studying stuff, but like for your new stuff that you're doing, what are you going to go through, like Duolingo and stuff like that, or are you going to kind of go through a new?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about this, and I haven't actually used Duolingo for it at all. Just because I've been going much more down the, I'm not really friends with Anki, and I'm really sorry, but I've been going down the Quizlet like route of making flashcards of myself from the lessons of the podcast I've been listening to, and from the and then just kind of thinking of the verbs that I think are most like that I want to use all the time, because I practice speaking to myself all the time, and then whenever there's a word that I can't find, I make a note of it and find out, and then add it to my Quizlet thing. So so I haven't actually, and I was thinking about it because I don't know any house words. I was thinking maybe it'd be useful to learn some house words. Maybe I should get on that old Duolingo tree. So yeah. Do you miss it? Do you miss your apps?
I really don't. Like, I feel like in a weird way, it's freed up so much of my time.
Yeah.
Because I would dabble so much, and then I would review crap that I didn't need to review. Like I would review like bebo agua. I never need to hear I drink water in Spanish again to not like I will never not know how to say that. Why am I reviewing that?
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I don't think the review system is often very helpful, but I don't know. But they have actually updated. I was quite impressed. What was I looking at it for? I think I was looking at it for Dutch, and I was really impressed that they'd kind of updated the way that they were teaching it and their list of notes that went with it at the very least. And so because I finished the French Duolingo tree in 2013, and the state of the French Duolingo tree now is so different to what it was then, and I was really impressed to see like how much it had changed actually. But yeah, I mean, it's still what it is.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest complaint that I have with Duolingo will always be, and I know that it's community driven, and I'm not saying it's not, but like the idea that there are courses that do not have native audio is alarming. Like it's that text to speech sound.
Right, sorry, yes.
And that's for a company that charges you, and like they could put some of that money, and I've even thought about this before, I've said it in the past, right? Like, or not, they don't charge you, but there is a premium version. They're in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is a massive city, and if they really wanted to, I guarantee you, if they put a flyer out that said, hey, Spanish speakers, we'll give you a free year of Duolingo, come record some audio for a day. I
think they do have native speakers of Spanish. They
may have it for Spanish now. They may, and it may have been for a while. It's just been a long time since I've used it. But
using Duolingo for Spanish is like a whole other thing. Like they have those stories and everything, and it's just like I think it's Spanish, French, German, and Portuguese maybe. It's like they've put so much time and effort into that course, and then there are some courses that just haven't received that attention. But I don't know. I think it's like almost like used responsibly, used in moderation. I think the desktop app can be quite helpful, but I think the phone app, don't think it has the notes or anything. So yeah.
I don't know if it. They had updated this right before I stopped using it actually, because they actually have it. If you do it on the phone, it actually they'll make the notes almost like a quiz. Like they'll tell you like how something is used. And then it'll be like, now, if this person is saying that, like, for example, in Spanish, if you're saying I have something, like tengo whatever, like, it'll be like, now, if you're saying I have, and it'll be like tengo or, whatever, like, just other term, and you select the right one. So they'll kind of, like, quiz you out of it.
That's kind of nice.
So
maybe I should try. Don't know.
yeah,
Haven't done yet. I should probably leave soonish
okay.
because I've made the promise of cycling to the supermarket. So
No, you're cool. Yeah, we'll
it's
get
later here than it is where you are.
No, for sure. Anybody who has any final question, I know there's about a 20-second delay here, but anybody who has any final questions for Ophelia, let me know, and I will we'll get those answered, and we'll let Ophelia go so she can go do her cycling. Listen to some passive audio. I want to get you a little bit. I'm gonna get you a little bit into some immersion based stuff because it's helped me so much with learning.
No,
so.
I will. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, that's why I wanted to see your like conversion video. Like, this is why I've converted here. So I was like, should I try this?
Yeah,
so,
I think if you were doing like, I think if I would implement a Duolingo or something back in, I think that it would be fine if I personally had the personality to not immediately want to jump into another language. Like, I think if you used that as a supplement and then immersed a ton, so that way you're hearing the words that you're learning in a native type way, I think that would be fine. But my personality for languages is just not good. Just not good. Like, I don't know if it's like an ADD of the brain or what, but I'm always like, ooh, shiny new thing. Let's go over there. So
it's hard. I do think you're being particularly hard on yourself there. So no, I don't seem to see any questions.
Yeah. So I thank you for coming on. I'm so happy that we made this happen.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much for having me.
I would love to chat again in the future. Maybe in a month or so.
Absolutely.
We can update on the secretive project there that you're.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so bad at secrets.
But thanks everybody for joining. I have Ophelia's links in the description below: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all very, very soon. God, I'm doing it again. I always have to stall to go to the dashboard to click in stream. There we go. All right. I will see you guys in the next stream. So